From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots, and welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network, WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting, Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7. The list goes on and on and on. And joining me today as my co-host is the Patriot from the Garden State, Anna Little. Anna, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Once again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's.
Well, I'm glad to be with you, Rick, and it is really, really shocking to me that it has come to this, that we are winding up the year 2015. I think time flies when you're having fun.
It does.
And I have enjoyed this year with Conservative Commandos.
And I've enjoyed the past 5 years sharing this microphone with you, and it's kind of fun thinking that this little thing that we started 5 years ago is still going on and getting stronger.
Yeah, and if it were not for you, the producer, we would not have this. So I want to thank you very much for all the hard work that you do. And Silent John on the boards there, we know what it's like when he's not around, and we really do appreciate it when he is.
Yes, will you tell him how hectic it is when he's not around?
Yeah.
How many people get hung up on and mistakes made, except Monday when Mateo's here, and when Mateo's here, we're in good hands.
Yeah.
So, Anna, what's on your radar screen today, my friend?
Well, I've been looking at, I guess, the fact that we're at the end of the year here, and I was taken to, I guess it's entitled, The 6 Biggest Political Surprises of the Year, and I have a few comments about it, too. It's put out by NBC News, not one of my favorite news outlets, but still has given me a little bit of fodder for what I'd like to talk about with you.
Sure.
Sounds fun. The top of their list is the crash and burn of Scott Walker. Now, I have to admit that having seen Scott Walker in action, I really did expect him to be a front runner right through to the end of the primary cycle in 2016's presidential race. So I am surprised, as others apparently are, that he did not make it. Now, I believe it was political fundraising, really, that got in his way, and the fact that there were so very many conservative candidates. There wasn't an opportunity for Scott Walker to consolidate that conservative base as a funding avenue. So I think that's probably what contributed to it, and I do think we'll see Scott Walker again. But interesting that that's at the top of the list on an NBC list.
He also got into it a little late, didn't he, Anna?
He did, but he was a front runner even in prior years. People had been talking about him running for president for quite some time.
Well, he's a young man.
Yeah, and he's a young man. We'll see more of him.
Yep.
Number 2 on their list is that Democrats, they call it Democrats feel the burn, THE space BERN, meaning Bernie Sanders. I do think, to me, that is a shock and a surprise, because I really thought we understood the problems that pure socialism presents, especially after having fought a Cold War for so many years. But apparently, there are folks out there that think socialism is okay, so Bernie Sanders has a little bit of wind in his sails. Obviously, I don't think he's going to overtake Hillary Clinton, so I don't think we have much to worry about there. But it is a bit shocking that he has as much support as he does, so we have to be looking at that going forward. The third thing on the list, 3 out of 6, is the ascendance of Paul Ryan. Now, I didn't find that as surprising. Paul Ryan has been a conservative that's been able to or communicate with effectively the establishment without giving up his conservative principles. And so I'm not surprised at the ascendance of Paul Ryan. NBC News is, and that would make sense since they tend to have a liberal bent. But apparently he truly, in honesty, had no interest in being Speaker of the House. So for that aspect, but I'm not surprised at it, because I do think they were looking for someone who could speak to both camps and perhaps get us focused on legislation, action, and a presidential candidate for 2016. Number 4 on this list is the decline of campaign ads. Now, this is interesting. Apparently, and I think it is true, that in this presidential primary cycle up to date, those who have spent the most on political campaign ads are not seeing the bang for the buck in uptick with regard to their campaign results. It means that the folks in the primary voter class are not focused on what they see in a campaign ad when they're choosing their candidate in the same way they may have been traditionally before.
Yeah.
I do think social media has a lot to do with this.
I do too.
Yeah, so we're going to have to watch the effect of campaign ads going forward and what that does to media outlets who do depend on that money being spent during these election cycles as well. So it's an interesting aspect. Hillary Clinton's emails. Now, NBC News is calling this a surprise. The way they're going at it is they're saying that it's an ongoing theme in the presidential race, and it's an issue that has weighed down her candidacy and fed the perception that she's dishonest and trustworthy. And this is NBC News saying this. And then it does say, in addition to her explanation, she said she deleted more than half emails that were of a personal nature. The FBI is trying to retrieve the deleted emails while the State Department is releasing the rest. And the story keeps dragging on. So NBC News is recognizing this as a surprise that it's continuously dragging on.
And then before you go on to number 6, I'd like to take a guess at number 6.
Okay.
Are we up to 6 yet?
I believe we are there, yes.
Okay, how about Biden deciding not to run?
No, it's not on the list.
It should be?
I think that's surprising.
Yes.
Yeah, no, Biden is not on the list. They go straight to Donald Trump. And they're calling the rise of Donald Trump as the most obvious, shocking political story of the year.
I wouldn't totally disagree with that. No, I wouldn't totally disagree with that.
The only reason I'm not shocked is I've seen him backing other presidential candidates and voicing frustration with their inability to win the race in the general election. So I'm not shocked. I really wasn't sure that he'd have the stamina that he's got politically. I mean, is he a great businessman? Yes. Is he a terrific attention getter from the media? Does he say things that you and I might think but not blurt out in quite the same way he does? He certainly breaks the mold of political speech when it comes to, because nothing is off limits for him, and he has no care or concern about how something's going to be interpreted. He just blurts it out and then deals with the aftermath. I think that part of things is interesting to me. I would not have predicted it, but I wouldn't say it's shocking. Or
you know what, Anna? I bet I would bet, if he would be honest with you, he would admit to being a little bit surprised himself. I look at Donald Trump the way Newt Gingrich was 4 years ago when he decided to run. He didn't think that he would get anywhere. He just wanted to get into the race to have a say. Lo and behold, there was a short period of time where he was at the top of the polls, Newt Gingrich was. But I think that was a surprise to Gingrich, and I think it's a surprise to Trump. I'm not sure Trump ever got in it thinking that he would ever even want to be president. I mean, there is a man with more money than God. He doesn't need the aggravation of running for president or governing a country or dealing with Congress or the press or the Supreme Court. I think he got in because he wanted to shoot off his mouth. I think he got in it more for the publicity than anything. I believe he's become a character of himself, and he's got caught up in this himself, and he thinks he can win now.
Well, I'm not sure what his intentions were getting in the beginning. He will tell you he only ever thought he would win it and that he doesn't do things that he wouldn't win. I am mildly concerned because the media tends to pay attention only to Trump. And right now, that is the story.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a bad thing either.
Well, we'll see who wins the primary.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Can I tell you? Let me tell you why I don't think it's a bad idea. Because he'll take all the wrath of the media that any Republican or any conservative would get out there. Let him take the slings and arrows. He can handle it. He can take it. And I've mentioned before here on the Conservative Commandos, what my feeling is that Donald Trump is like when a young man looks around for a girlfriend. He looks for someone fun and pretty and is going to have a good time with. But when a young man gets down to being serious about his life and looking for a lifelong partner, Donald Trump's not the one. I really don't think that Donald Trump is the one. Ted Cruz, to me, is more someone would get serious with.
Okay. So there you have it. Those are the 6 biggest political surprises, according to NBC News, with a few comments by Rick and myself relative to our take on it. I am pleased to see that they are highlighting Hillary Clinton's emails and acknowledging that she's got some difficulty because of those and that it hasn't ended.
Well,
the eye is on it. So
again, I've expressed this belief, Anna, that I think there's a very good chance Hillary will not be the candidate. I don't think it's going to be Bernie Sanders either. I believe it's going to be somebody like a Joe Biden. Joe, good old Uncle Joe, is going to ride to the rescue at the last moment, not only to save the Democrat Party, but to save America. Okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's see. I still hope it's one of our conservative Republicans. That's, in my opinion, that would be Cruz. That would be Ted Cruz. That would be Ted Cruz, okay. That would be Ted Cruz. Well, Anna, we are up against a break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1316 Philly and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeart Radio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment, and it is protected by the Second. Anna and I will be right back.
Yeah, that's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com. commandos.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows or podcasts, whatever you want to call them, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., please log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net, and up till the end of the week at 2 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. Starting next week, you'll be able to hear rebroadcast of Conservative Commandos at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on highplainsdailynews.com, so that's a change. Another change, one of our very first affiliates was CPRWorldwideMedia.com. Well, they're going through some changes, and the new network will be American Patriot Broadcasting Network. So we're glad and honored to be with both those organizations and continuing on with them. And let's talk a little bit about our guest today. At 3:35, we're going to have the honor of speaking with Eric Boehm. He's a reporter for Watchdog.org. Former bureau chief for Pennsylvania Independent. He now lives in Minneapolis, and his work has appeared in Reason Magazine, National Review Online, Freeman Magazine, Philadelphia Inquirer, Washington Examiner, and elsewhere. And we've asked Eric to join us to discuss an article that he wrote, No Christmas in Bethlehem This Year. And it's another attack on Christmas, Anna. Who will you be speaking with at 4:05?
At 4:05, we're going to speak with former Congressman Paul Brown, M.D. He's a primary care physician. He represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia, and while he was serving in Congress, he's been appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and he currently was serving as the chairman of Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. He's going to join us today to discuss the passage of the budget last week. And the title is Congress Passes Budget Deal and Heads Home for the Year. I don't think that former Congressman Paul Brown is very happy about this. So we'll be looking forward to hearing his remarks and conversing with him about this budget deal. Mm-hmm. And then at 4:35, we're going to speak with Sarah Westwood. She's a watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner, and she previously covered local governments for the Marietta Daily Journal, that's in Georgia. And she received her bachelor's degree in political science from George Washington University, and she is a graduate of the fellowship program of the National Journalism Center. She's joining us today, Rick, to talk about the 15 biggest scandals of 2015. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that.
Indeed. Sounds like a lot of fun. Anna, what else is on your radar today?
Well, you know, my favorite subject seems to be that country of Ukraine. You know, the one that trusted the United States of America when they gave up their nuclear arms, and the one that was invaded by Russia while America stood there and did nothing. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics. So I've been looking into it today, and I am looking at Bloomberg View for those of you listeners who would like to find this article yourself. It's an article that was posted 11:29 today before noon by Leonid Bershidsky. I think I pronounced that properly. The title of it is Russia and Ukraine Finally Break Up. Well, it's about time. I mean, Russia has invaded them. They're involved in conquest. There's no way Ukraine should be friendly with Russia today, in my opinion. But apparently, ever since Ukraine declared independence in August of 1991, it did seek to establish an identity that would set it apart from Russia. However, in practice, it kept following its bigger neighbor, meaning Russia, through its failed westernization period of 2005 to 2010, inherited the same basis for its legal system and government. I personally think where Ukraine formally stepped away, Rick, is when the people of Ukraine peacefully used their elected representatives in government to vote no confidence and change the leader of that government. And I think that's where America has a missed opportunity. We should have stood up for that exercise of democracy by the people of Ukraine, and we should have defended them against conquest and the annexation of Crimea by Russia, because I think that they've been punished. The people of Ukraine have been punished for exercising their rights under their democratic government, very similarly to the way our people in the United States were punished by England when we were occupied by them prior to the Revolutionary War. And I think we had a unique opportunity to stand side by side with Ukraine, push back Russia, and prove to the rest of the world that true democracy, government by the people, for the people, is possible and will be defended by the United States of America. However, we didn't do that. I am encouraged to say that I don't think the people of Ukraine care whether the United States backs them up or not. They're not going away. They're not backing down. And as a result, Ukraine and Russia, two separate things today. And I'm not sure that Vladimir Putin accomplished what he set out to accomplish by annexing Crimea. I don't think he has a subservient or obedient Ukraine government, even today. And if anything, I think he's incensed them more.
I believe so. I believe he has incensed them, strengthened, galvanized them. Putin's not a real nice guy. Not a real nice guy.
He's all about recreating Mother Russia, turning her into the empire that she was. He's not hiding that. He does not lead with that mission, but he doesn't hide it either. I mean, you can see that that's his goal if you look.
I think he has two goals. One is, as you said, to reincarnate the Soviet Union into what it used to be. Maybe not call it the Soviet Union, but basically do the same thing. The other thing is to enrich himself. Case in point, remember the Sochi Olympics?
Yeah.
He spent $50 billion. A lot of it was in construction that was bidded out to his friends and cronies. Sochi now is like a ghost town. Nobody goes there. That $50 billion is went to a ghost town. So he has enriched himself. He has enriched his friends and cronies around him. He's followed a page in the Barack Obama manuscript. Reward your friend, punish your enemies. He has imprisoned his critics. Some of his critics, like some of Hillary Clinton's critics, have turned up dead. So he's taking care of himself, his friends, his families, as politicians do. And he certainly has made things tough on Obama. He's really, one thing that he's done, Anna, I think he has shown what a strong leader is about for his country. I wish we had a president who put America first, the way Putin refuses to bow down to the dogs in Russia. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think Putin does not believe the people of Russia are the people are in charge, or that he serves the people.
Well, neither.
I think Putin is concerned about his image, and he wants to be perceived as strong, powerful, to be feared. I don't know that it transfers over to the people he served.
Yeah, well,
I think they serve him, not the other way around.
I don't think Obama sees it as we the people. I think he's also self-serving. He is not somebody who's going to get the respect of people around the world as being strong. That's for sure.
Right. Well,
it's hard to look into his head.
He wanted to be perceived as conciliatory, and he certainly is. perceived just that way.
Yep. Anything else?
But
We've got about 2 minutes.
With regard to Ukraine and Russia, though, it is economically driven. Ukraine is no longer focused, at least according to Bloomberg View. Ukraine businesses are not, they're not focused on maintaining sales to Russia in the same way that they had been. By next year, the last vestiges of any mutual dependence between Ukraine and Russia will probably be destroyed by Moscow's decision to strap the free trade area with Kiev in response to the removal of trade barriers between Ukraine and the EU. So that's reading a sentence right out of the Bloomberg View article. The article ends by saying that while neither Ukraine nor Russia are big winners in this separation, in 2016, the Ukrainians have more to look forward to than the Russians do. And I do believe that to be true, because the Ukrainians are standing up and they are asserting their independence, and they are looking forward to relationships with other freedom-loving countries in the Western world. And Russia is trying to regain an empire that was obtained by conquest, which is frowned upon by the rest of the world. So I do think that's true.
I do too. Hey, Anna, break time, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And please check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com for a rebroadcast. Don't go away, Anna and I'll be right back with our very first guest, Eric Bean.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night at Concord Bridge in Trenton. For freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net. At 2 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. Now, starting next week, highplainsdailynews.com is going to rebroadcast Conservative Commandos at 9 p.m. in the evening. And we do have our first guest with us. Eric Boehm is a reporter for Watchdog.org. He's the former bureau chief for the Pennsylvania Independent. He is now living in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where he enjoys great weather and low taxes. And previously, he worked more than 3 years in Harrisburg, covering Pennsylvania state politics. His work has appeared in Reason Magazine, National Review Online, Freeman Magazine, the Philadelphia Inquirer, the Washington Examiner, and a whole bunch of other places. But Eric, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, sir.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, too. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, it's great that you could join us, Eric, and I wanted to have you on. You wrote a story recently that really caught my eye. No Christmas in Bethlehem. Seems like it's another attack on Christmas, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I buy the war on Christmas narrative that's out there sometimes, but this certainly, caught my eye, and I guess it caught your eye as well.
Yep.
This is a story. You can check it out at watchdog.org. It was our Nanny State of the Week last week. That's a section that we do every single week on watchdog.org. And this week we wrote about Bethlehem, New York, a small town just outside of Albany. And this year they banned the display of a Merry Christmas banner that has been unfurled across the town park for several years.
Yeah, and okay, it was just a banner, and Eric, we've seen and heard these things happen in different times in the past. Different towns threatened, different school districts threatened. Usually it comes from groups like the Freedom From Religion group or the American Civil Liberties Union. Any idea why the town of Bethlehem, New York, was afraid to display a banner that said Merry Christmas?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is something that we've seen, in a lot of places, usually the result of lawsuits or threats or something like that. The Albany Times-Union was the newspaper that originally reported this story, and they said that the town of Bethlehem, they usually display a menorah and a Christmas tree in this park to honor Christmas and Hanukkah, of course, basically in the middle of downtown. Going back several years now, there was a resident of the town who had bought and donated this Merry Christmas sign because she thought the Christmas tree was kind of dull just by itself and it needed something else. So the sign wasn't there this year, and she asked the town, hey, why did you take it down? Why isn't the sign there? Their response was that the sign had basically just grown old. It was, worn down, and it didn't look as good anymore. So she offered to buy a new one for the town, and then when she offered that, she got an email from the town's lawyer basically saying that she wasn't allowed to do that because they didn't want to stir up any trouble. They didn't want to attract any sort of lawsuit like the ones you were talking about.
Yeah. So it seems like the bullying tactics that come from the ACLU and groups like Freedom From Religion are having an effect in stopping communities from celebrating Christmas, celebrating Hanukkah.
Yeah, John Clarkson is one of the supervisors in the town of Bethlehem. He told the Albany Times-Union that he said that the only way that they can avoid contentious litigation or having the town thrust into controversy over whose sign shall be placed where was to just take this sign down. I guess he's worried about some sort of an arms race over who gets the largest holiday sign or something like that in the town park. It's funny because this is a town named Bethlehem.
Yeah, it is.
And this is a town that is, obviously that name is a deliberate reference to the birthplace of Jesus, and obviously ties sort of the town in some way to a Christian tradition, and largely the entire country really ties itself back to that Christian tradition. So, in another town, would this be a big deal? Maybe. I don't know. In a town named Bethlehem, though, it just kind of sticks out as, okay. If you're not going to endorse a specific holiday celebration, if you're not going to endorse a Christmas celebration like this, then, I don't know. Then I guess you have to kind of change the name of the town, right? Because if it wasn't for Christmas, I doubt that town would ever have been named Bethlehem in the first place.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if these groups aren't going to come after towns and wanting them to change their name. Look what's happening in the South, Eric. There's individuals who are protesting, saying that some flags, some statues are offensive to them. So you have governments changing their state flag, pulling their state flags down. In Louisiana, in New Orleans, they're pulling down 4 statues of Confederate Civil War heroes. So, who knows what's next? I'm sure there are people already out there thinking that we have to make towns change their name because we are offended by their name.
Yeah, certainly. I think you make a good point about sort of the runaway offense culture in this country and how things have kind of gotten out of hand with some of that. I think there's a clear difference in the distinction between a sign wishing people a Merry Christmas and memorials that celebrate the leaders of an armed insurrection against the country. There's different levels of concern, I guess, about that.
Yeah,
I think what I would come back to is just the fact that the First Amendment basically says that the government is not supposed to infringe any sort of religious practice or religious celebration, and is also not supposed to establish an official religion.
Right.
Those are pretty wide parameters. You can there's a lot of things that fit under the First Amendment. I think, unfortunately, when you see situations like this, and when you see, stories that are reported around the country that sort of fit this war on Christmas narrative, these are people who are reading very narrowly those First Amendment rights, and the attempt, to prevent people from, let me put it this way: putting up a sign in public is not an official endorsement of a religion, any more so than naming your town Bethlehem is the official endorsement of any religion. The First Amendment, as most of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights does, gives Americans very wide berth to do what they want and think what they want and say what they want. And I think that's the way the framers intended it, and that's the way we should continue to respect it.
You know, Eric, you talking about the narrowing of the First Amendment. I think it's becoming more and more narrow, and that people are getting more and more overly sensitive over a phrase, Merry Christmas. Schools today are afraid there are no more Christmas concerts in schools. They're all winter festivals, you know.
Right.
That the ACLU crowd, this crowd, Freedom from Religion, it's not freedom from religion, it's freedom of religion. You know, so the verbal engineering, Eric, always precedes the social engineering. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening in our country.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, and I think the First Amendment is broadly written, for exactly because it is supposed to be interpreted in a broad manner.
Yeah.
And I think the official establishment of a religion, look, wishing someone a Merry Christmas, hanging up a banner in your town center, having a Christmas play at your school is not officially establishing a religion. When the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were written, what the founders that were putting that together meant is that they didn't want the government to force people to practice a certain religion, and they didn't want religions outlawed the way most religious practices were outlawed in the Soviet Union, for example. They didn't want, if you go back to colonial times, they didn't want an official church of the United States the way we had a Church of England back then, the Anglican Church. I don't think there's a whole lot of historical evidence to support the idea that they felt wishing someone a Merry Christmas should be considered offensive, or that allowing people to, choose whatever religion they want and practice that both in private and in public would be considered offensive. Look, if a public school is taking all of their kids and forcing them to attend a church service, busing them to a specific church service and forcing them to attend and forcing them to say prayers, that's a problem.
That is a problem.
That would be a problem.
But you don't see that.
If a public school hangs...
Hey, Eric, we have to take a quick break. Could you hold on for us for just 2 minutes, please?
Sure.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of WNJC 1360 and that of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM/FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. Our guest this segment is Eric Bain. He's a reporter for Watchdog.org, and we're talking about No Christmas in Bethlehem this year. Please don't go away, Anna, and I'll be right back with our guest.
They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. Businessman there, drink my wine. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Anna Little and Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m. roarradio.net, and at 2 p.m. highplainsdailynews.com. Starting next week, that's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can also hear our show any time of the day by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Eric Boehm. He's a reporter for Watchdog.org, and we're discussing an article Eric wrote, No Christmas in Bethlehem This Year. Eric, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
Eric, not too long, a few years back, there was a very similar situation in a town not too far from here, Pittman, New Jersey. Apparently, the Knights of Columbus put up a banner across the main street of Pittman that said Merry Christmas. The town got a letter from the ACLU demanding this sign being taken down. As a result, the sign was never taken down, Eric, because it was hung from two privately owned poles on either side of the street. But one thing that I noticed driving through Pittman this past Christmas night, enjoying all the Christmas displays and lights and everything, was the hundreds and hundreds of signs saying, Merry Christmas to you, Merry Christmas from Pittman, New Jersey. You're not taking Christmas away from our town, ACLU. The people actually fought back.
That's an interesting story. I'd never heard that one before. But I think that's, this sort of controversy can certainly become a lightning rod for things. I think I pointed this out in the story again. You can check it out at watchdog.org. But about the town of Bethlehem, the one councilman there had told the Albany newspaper that they felt like they couldn't put the sign up because they were worried about attracting attention, maybe litigation from having this Merry Christmas sign up in the town square. But, it kind of ends up working the other way around because that story is, the Albany Times-Union never would have written a story about town puts up Merry Christmas banner. We never would have picked up that story and run with it at our site as well.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't do something sometimes turns into more of a lightning rod than if you did. So, yeah, I mean, look, towns, if they feel like they're under some sort of legal pressure from the ACLU, I can understand. I think you have to understand where those civic officials are coming from. The lawsuits, frivolous though they may be, are expensive, and the taxpayers ultimately have to pick up the tab for those things, right?
Yeah. And I want to bring Anna Little into the conversation, Eric. Anna was the mayor of her town of Highlands, New Jersey. She was also freeholder in Monmouth County, and she was a candidate for U.S. Congress. Anna, I think a lot of times that these groups do this just to, as Eric was saying, intimidate towns, knowing that, and by the way, Anna is an attorney also, but a lot of times these groups just do this to intimidate towns. Towns know that lawsuits are expensive.
Well, I think that is true as far as the motivation of the atheists or the anti-religion folks. But I do think that we have an obligation to stand up for this freedom of religion. It's a foundational freedom. It's under the First Amendment, the very first, and it's first for a reason. And as mayor in my small town of the borough of Highlands, population about 5,000, we actually sang Silent Night at our municipal tree lighting. We then had a phone call from some new folks that had moved into town. They were practicing the Jewish faith. They witnessed our tree lighting, and they heard Silent Night sung, and they asked me, would you put the menorah up on the municipal sign and light the candle on the sign electronically each night of Hanukkah so that we can point to that and say to our sons, see, religion is welcome here for us too. And I said, fine. I think if you put people in leadership who understand what the First Amendment is and what it means, and then if the people exercise their rights openly, I think the discussion goes away. I think that the intimidation goes away. I think the only reason these elected officials are intimidated is because we, the people, are not standing up and saying that we want to express our religion at the time that this is occurring. And I think that if we do that, we can solve the problem. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better myself. I think that's exactly it. I mean, I think the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment particularly are there as a framework, as a set of guidelines to allow society to to let people live and let live, and basically just to say, especially in the case of the First Amendment, it basically just says, hey, government, you can't interfere. You can't interfere in this part of society. These sorts of things, religious issues, free speech issues. When people want to organize themselves, demonstrate, these types of things are up to individuals and up to individuals and groups of individuals to decide for themselves. And I think that's a great example, Anna, right there of a town where, I would assume, I know Monmouth County, I know New Jersey, but I don't want to make any undue assumptions, but I would assume it's probably Christian population, generally speaking. You've got a Christmas tree, you're singing Christmas carols. Jewish family says, hey, can we practice our religion in public too? Can we celebrate our religion and our holiday in public too? And I think that's exactly the right response, is to say, sure, absolutely. That's, everybody is welcome here. And I think that is, if you're trying to get to some sort of intent behind the First Amendment and the free practice of religion in this country, I think that's exactly the way it should be.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I'll tell you, I didn't have any hesitation as the mayor of my small town. It was an instinct for me. I'm a conservative, so you can understand why that might be. I was raised that way. It's just the way it's in my fiber. It's the way I'm built. But there are other elected officials, obviously, as these examples demonstrate, who feel that intimidation. And so, I guess if you didn't have that fiber to begin with, if you perhaps didn't experience that kind of upbringing to begin with, perhaps if people speak up in your community, most folks in a town level, they understand, because they're so close to the people they serve. You can't go for a gallon of milk without being asked a question about the last council meeting when you're mayor or council member in your town. It's easier, I think, for those local elected officials to understand they serve the people in that town, because they're being reminded on a daily basis. And their kids go to school with these folks, either as their teachers or their administrators, or perhaps the local police officer grew up with one of the parents next door. It's a small town environment. In the larger cities, it's a little more difficult. But I think at the local level, we have that opportunity, and the discourse is so much freer at the local level. Our difficulty is more at the national level, getting them to remember what the Constitution is all about, because they don't have to deal with you every single day.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely on point there, and I think that's sort of written right in there, right? We're getting off topic a bit here, but that's the whole point of the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Bill of Rights, is to sort of delegate things that are not specifically spelled out for the federal government to the states or to local governments or to individuals to decide for themselves. Because I think the people, the men who wrote that document, understood that there was more power in local control, better democracy in local decision making, and that applies to this issue that we're talking about here. But I think you could honestly apply that to almost every issue, barring perhaps, war and foreign policy issues that I think have to be decided at the national level. But I mean, anything short of that, anything that comes up day to day that the federal government is doing, probably 90% of that could be better accomplished at the state level or local level.
I completely agree with you.
Hey, Eric, Anna, not to get off the track, but Eric, this is part 66 of a 66-part series, Nanny State of the Week, continuing series on your part. Eric, please tell our audience where they could read this article and other articles in your series, Nanny State of the Week.
Yeah, you can head over to watchdog.org. That's where we do our Nanny State, as the title suggests. We have a new one every single week. There's a tab right on the top of the page that says Nanny State. You can click on that and check out all of our, whatever, it's 66, I guess, at this point. We've been doing it for a while. And there's lots of other great stuff up there. We have reporters in the state houses all around the country covering issues that the mainstream media frequently misses. So head over to watchdog.org and find it.
Eric Boehm, again, we want to thank you for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Again, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. And also take care and God bless, my friend.
It was a great conversation. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Always enjoy having you with us, Eric. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 AM in Philadelphia. And around the world on the internet with CPR, Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with former Congressman Paul Brown. Going to talk with him about the budget deal that was passed last week. Yeah, I don't think he's very happy about it. We'll find out. Be right back.
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and yours truly, Rick Trader. And for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to Leading Edge Radio Network at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, and at 2 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. You can also hear our show any time of the day from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. And a little, we do have our next guest with us, and the honor of the introduction is yours.
Thank you, Rick. Former Congressman Paul Brown, M.D. He's a primary care physician. He represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia, and while serving in Congress, he was appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and he was chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. Congressman Brown, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show.
And I'm always just blessed and honored to be on y'all's program. I'll tell you what, I just really appreciate what you guys are doing, fighting for liberty as I am.
Well, I'm glad to have you with us, and I love this topic you're going to be discussing with us, because we conservatives get it. Government has no money unless we give it to them. And here we have a Congress that just passed a budget deal last week, so talk to us about that.
Well, they passed a budget that just totally is fiscally irresponsible. It creates about $500 billion worth of more debt. We cannot sustain the debt that we already have. Continue to fund all of the bad programs of Barack Obama's, from Obamacare to his amnesty program, to funding Planned Parenthood, to funding the refugee resettlement program of Barack Obama. So it's a tremendous attack upon conservatism, both all across the board, for social conservatives, for defense conservatives, as well as for fiscal conservatives. It is totally a liberal bill, a big government bill, and this kind of thing has to stop. And that's the reason that I have become the national spokesman for the Tea Party Leadership Fund. We have a website called TheTeaPartyLeadershipFund.com, and I encourage people to go on that website, theteapartyleadershipfund.com, and help us to have the resources so we can elect people in both the Republican as well as the Democrat side, even knocking off a lot of these rhino Republicans, so we can stop this out-of-control government.
Well, I think there is a disconnect between what's going on in Washington, D.C., and what the voters are experiencing out here in the districts. And I would love to have your input in this conversation about this very issue because, we did take back the House in 2010. And then when everybody thought this dysfunctional Congress theme of the media was a real negative to Republicans, we went back and took the Senate to tell our leaders, no, don't listen to the television set. Listen to us. We're in charge. So we took the House. We took the Senate. They're still worried about whether the Republicans have a functional Congress or not. And we, the people, are saying, you're functioning wrong. Function correctly. Am I right or am I wrong, Congressman?
You're absolutely correct. And the problem is the leadership. We had John Boehner as leader. I did not vote for John Boehner when I was in Congress 2 years ago. And Mitch McConnell is a disaster in the Senate. We do not have enough truly conservative members of the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate, and that's the reason that we need organizations such as the Tea Party Leadership Fund to help finance those of us who want to take power away from the politicians, away from the establishment in both parties, send those powers back to the states or to the people as the 10th Amendment demands. We've got to start electing non-establishment type candidates. Here in Georgia last year, I ran for the U.S. Senate, and the guy who got elected is the most establishment guy, but he was running as a non-establishment, non-politician type candidate, and he promised he would not vote for Mitch McConnell as the majority leader in the Senate if he were elected. That's the first thing he did, and he's been a disaster. He's voted for bigger and bigger government, more government largesse for big multinational corporations, like he was the CEO of several. And the thing is, the American people need to stop looking at what the politicians say, but look at what they do and the principles that they really stand on. We've got to stop electing people because of their personalities, or because of their pigment, or because of their gender. We've got to start electing people because of the principles upon which they stand and how they're going to vote. And we've got to hold their feet to the fire. That's what the Tea Party Leadership Fund is all about, and that's the reason I encourage people to go on my website.
Now, Congressman, you've pointed out that the leaders in both parties have said that next year they're optimistic that Congress would be able to handle its basic responsibilities, such as the funding of government, without the drama and the tension that has defined the institution in recent years. I have a question for you and for those leaders. If Congress is to function without drama and tension, wouldn't that be dependent upon the American people living without drama and tension? And I would put forward the idea that we, the people home in the districts, are living in drama and tension, and that's what's causing the drama and the tension in Congress. Am I okay?
Absolutely. No, absolutely correct. And the thing is, we've got to elect different kind of people in both parties. We've got to have people that will stand firm on the Constitution according to its original intent. In fact, that's what I did for the 4 terms I was in the U.S. House. I had 4 questions that I would ask myself about all legislation. All 4 would have to be yes for me to vote yes. The first one is it right? Does it fit the Judeo-Christian biblical principles that our nation was founded upon? The second question, is it constitutional according to the original intent of our founding fathers? Third, do we need it? And fourth, can we afford it? We've got to elect people who will use that same kind of a philosophy of how they vote, because there are very few in Congress today. We just saw Paul Ryan elected as Speaker, and 2/3 of the so-called conservative group, the Freedom Caucus, supported Ryan. Every single Georgia Republican voted for Paul Ryan. I like Paul Ryan personally, but he's a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. I knew that. Several conservatives and I tried to stop him from being elected as Speaker. I did not vote for John Boehner 2 years ago. In fact, at the beginning of this segment, you had my dear friend, Alan West, who he and I sat together on the floor of the House. I voted for him to be Speaker in the beginning of last Congress in January of 2014. We've got to have people who are going to stand up and say no to the leadership that is in power today and stop the leadership. We've got to get them stopped. There's been some talk about primarying Paul Ryan in Wisconsin, and we need to primary a lot of Republicans. We've got to get true conservatives. So you're absolutely correct. The leadership in the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party both want big government. They both want more power, and we've got to take it away. The strongest political force in America today is embodied in the first three words of the U.S. Constitution. We the people. We the people need to claim our government back, stop this out-of-control government, and that's what I'm all about, fighting for liberty and freedom.
Well, thank God for you. And at this point, I think we the people have to remind ourselves and remind our elected officials, the government is only as good as its service to the people. If we don't have jobs back at home in the districts, somebody's doing something wrong in Washington, D.C. If we can't make ends meet across our kitchen tables at the end of every month and put food on the table, clothes on our backs, send our kids to school, then there's something wrong in Washington, D.C. And we can't, as people, allow our government to dictate a lesser standard of living than what our parents had before us. And that is exactly what I think is causing all this drama and tension. And I think the disconnect is that they're perceiving that drama and tension as a negative instead of the way this government operates. Congressman, isn't it true that the people are supposed to tell their representatives what to do when they're down in D.C.? And isn't it wrong for those representatives to say to the people, no, this drama and tension's got to go? If I can't feed my family, I'm going to be a little tense, and maybe I might cause some drama trying to fix that problem. What can you offer us as far as encouragement going forward?
Well, the encouragement I see reflected in what's going on in the presidential races today, where you have Donald Trump, Carly Fiorina, and Ben Carson carrying between the three of them the vast majority of Republican voters. I think that's a reflection of the American people beginning to say, no, we can't continue down the same road that both parties have led us. So we've not only got to elect the right kind of president, but we've got to get a Congress that is going to start dismantling this out-of-control government. For instance, when I was in Congress, I introduced a bill to totally shut down the Department of Education. The Department of Education has been a disaster. We have no constitutional authority for it. I want to get rid of the Department of Education. I want to get rid of the Department of Commerce, the Department of Labor. And while we're at it, let's shut down the EPA and the IRS also. We need to get rid of all those branches of government that are killing jobs, killing our economy. And the good news is that the American people are beginning to wake up, and we need to have the right kind of people elected to the U.S. House and U.S. Senate. And so we need your help in promoting the Tea Party Leadership Fund to help us to be able to contribute to candidates, to do independent expenditures. There are other groups that are doing the same thing, but I'm the national spokesman for the Tea Party Leadership Fund. And by the way, we've got a second website besides the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com, and that's TeaPartyPrimary.org, where we encourage people to go on that website and vote for the top 3 candidates that they think will help us to take this government back, to stop this out-of-control government. So that's TeaPartyPrimary.org, and we encourage people to go on that website, too, and vote for their 3 top candidates.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're speaking with our very good friend, Paul Brown. Dr. Brown, it's great to speak with you again, my friend.
Well, it's always great to talk to you. Last couple of times, the good-looking lady wasn't on the line with us, and I'm glad to hear her again. So, but it's always a blessing and pleasure.
Well, I love to share the wealth with my co-host here at Conservative Commandos. Dr. Brown, this $1.1 trillion spending bill was passed by a vote of 316 to 113, with 150 Republicans voting for this measure. I mean, Dr. Brown, without the Republican support, this thing goes down the drain.
Absolutely. In fact, every single Georgia Republican, Georgia's supposed to be a conservative state, and the Republican members of Congress from Georgia all claim to be very, very conservative. But every single one of the 10 Georgia Republicans voted for that bill, except for Congressman Jody Heights. He was the only one out of the 10 that voted against it. But even back then, if you look further back, earlier this year, I think it was in April, there was another omnibus bill that John Boehner forced through that continued the spending all the way to October of this year. Every single Republican, except for 4 in the whole of the U.S. House, voted for that piece of garbage. I would have been there fighting to get more people to vote against it besides that 4 if I was there, and I would not have voted for it.
Dr. Brown, and let's remind our audiences here on the Conservative Commandos radio show what this funded. Things like Obamacare, Planned Parenthood, mass immigration, the EPA, all these things that supposedly these Republicans that conservatives helped to get into Congress were supposed to fight and stop.
That's right. And not only that, Rick, but even Paul Ryan, our new speaker, John Boehner II, basically put in there actually a bailout for Obamacare. The subsidy to the insurance companies, of the taxpayer subsidy to the insurance companies that was supposed to expire, that the Democrats wanted to basically renew. Paul Ryan changed it around to continue just in a different way to continue to subsidize the insurance companies so that the American people don't feel the full economic effect in their wallets, individuals, because the federal government is subsidizing everybody's health insurance. Everybody's. Now, we're paying too much for it because of Obamacare. Obamacare has raised the cost of health insurance markedly. But if the American people really felt the full impact of how much it's costing them through their taxes, they would demand that Obamacare be repealed, as it should. I had a bill called the Patient Option Act, which was the only Republican bill that would totally repeal Obamacare and would put in place policies that would literally lower the cost of insurance, lower the cost of all health care goods as well as services, and get the federal bureaucrats from making health care decisions for anybody. But I couldn't even get Republicans to support the bill because they wanted, even the conservative Republicans in Washington, most of them want to continue to have them and the federal bureaucrats to make decisions for all of us. American people need to demand something different, and it's absolutely critical that we get them to do so. And that's the reason we've got to mobilize, we the people all across this country, to stop this out-of-control government that both Democrats and Republicans have built. That's the reason that it is so important that people come and help me fight for liberty by contributing to the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com. Go on that website and help us out. It's absolutely critical for the future of this country, Rick.
Yeah. Dr. Brown, also, the House also passed a $622 billion tax measure. Is that a tax increase, do you know, sir?
Well, it is going to be, yes. It's going to be a tax increase, and I assume you're talking about the tax extender bill. It is going to actually, it is a federal. If you're talking about, are you talking about the tax extender bill that they passed?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
it is actually federal welfare to the multinational corporations, and so what it is a further tax on all working Americans, because what it does is it gives the multinational corporations a federal tax benefit so that and we all pay for it. So it is basically, it's not a direct tax, but it's going to hurt us all in our wallet.
You know, Dr. Brown, something else that was included in this that I think is going to hurt all Americans is the lifting of the oil export ban. Some people are trying to tell us, oh, this is going to actually lower the price of oil. How's that, Dr. Brown? When our oil is now going to be shipped overseas, I don't see how this is helping America.
Well, there are a lot of bad policies put in all these bills, Rick, and what the leadership on the Republican side have done, as well as the Democrats, what they do is they put what some people that are liberal Democrats into a bill and what some conservative Republicans want in a bill, so that they can get as many people to vote for these bills as they possibly can. When I think it was Obamacare was on the floor of the House, I went and made a speech against the bill, and I said that there are a few little good things in this bill that are like little tasty morsels of marshmallow, but the reality is it's really a cow patty with pieces of marshmallow, and I'm not going to eat this pie. I was chastised by none other than Barney Frank.
Yeah, well, he's got that. Yeah, right.
But
he's
the reality is that's what the leadership in the Republican Party does, as well as Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid do on the Democrat side when they were in power. Both parties are acting the same. What we've got to do is we've got to start disassembling this government that's just way out of control and start sending those powers back to the states or the people, as the 10th Amendment says that they should be, as it demands.
You know, Dr. Brown, talking about government out of control, there's also talk in Congress that Congress is going to bail out Puerto Rico. That Puerto Rico is in bankruptcy or near bankruptcy, and I see this as very dangerous because once you bail out Puerto Rico's debt, then you have to bail out California's debt, then you have to bail out the debt of any state that is irresponsible, that takes their state into debt. And then what I see happening, Dr. Brown, is other states are going to say, what the heck, we'll just spend, federal government's going to come bail us out.
Amen. You're absolutely correct. In fact, I'd like to stop American imperialism, give Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and all of the Marianas and all those back to those people and let them have their own country. That's what's in their best interest. That's what's in our best interest as well. But bailing out Puerto Rico is going to lead to exactly what you said, in my opinion.
Well, it's scary. You know, what worries me, Dr. Brown, is I don't know the debt of Puerto Rico, but I know that California is like $20 billion in debt. State of New Jersey's $4 or $5 billion in debt. And, there's no incentive for states to control their debt if they know the federal government is going to come in behind them and clean up their mess.
Absolutely. You're correct. From the very get-go, everything that you say is absolutely correct, Rick. And the thing is, the states, if you look at the reality, the states have become nothing more than administrative bodies of the federal government. We've got to change that. We've got to start sending the powers back to the states that truly belong to the states. And that means most of what the federal government is doing today. For instance, I want to get rid of the EPA. The states can make sure that we are good stewards of our environment. God tells us in His Word, in the Holy Bible, that we have to be good stewards of His creation. And I believe that very firmly. We have not been in the past, but it's way past time for us to get rid of the EPA in Washington, let the states work those things out. Let's be good stewards of our environment and close down the EPA. The EPA is trying to close down the coal industry. The coal industry itself has been policing itself and has been developing clean coal technology. The more we start, and the EPA has just put forward some rules that are basically geared towards closing down coal power production in this country, which means that the cost of electricity is going to go up for everybody, which means the cost of every good and service in this country is going to go up. And our electric bills are going to go up. Who's hurt the most? Poor people and senior citizens on limited income. And what else happens is as we hurt our economy, as we get as we close down manufacturing in this country, China, India, other countries that don't have the same kind of philosophy of closing their coal plants down, they continue to build more. They continue to pollute the air even at a greater rate than what we're doing today. It's counterproductive to being good stewards of the environment, of what this EPA is doing. Barack Obama said, if you want a coal power plant, fine, I'm going to bankrupt you if you do. And he's against nuclear power. He just thinks that wind and solar is going to provide all the power that we need. But the alternative energy supplies, which I'm all in favor of, but let's let them stand on their own and not get the federal subsidies. They could not stand on their own today without the federal subsidies. Let the marketplace determine those things, not some bureaucrat or some president or politician determine what's good for America. Let's let the marketplace determine that. Let's start closing down the Department of Education and the EPA and the IRS and start sending those powers back to the states or the people. You're absolutely correct. We've got to stop this idiocy that's going on by both parties in Washington and stop this out-of-control government. And that's what I'm in the fight for.
Former Congressman Paul Brown, Dr. Brown, we want to thank you so much for joining us here in the Conservative Commandos. Please, once again, give out your websites where people can go to help make a difference.
Two websites. One is teapartyprimary.org. teapartyprimary.org. We encourage people to go on that website, vote for the top 3 Republican candidates running for president that they think will help us stop this out-of-control government. And then go on the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com. No dots, dashes, anything else. The TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com. Sign up as a patriot. Contribute. Help us to get the right kind of people who are going to stand firm on limited government, enumerated powers, stand firm on the Constitution as our founding fathers meant it to be, so that we can take this government back, so that we can bring manufacturing back to America, so that we can create jobs and for everybody and have a strong economy. The TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com.
Dr. Paul Brown, former Congressman of the 10th Congressional District in Georgia and representing all of America, I want to thank you once again for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Dr. Brown, I hope you had a Merry Christmas.
Right quick,
Sure.
We've got to stop this Syrian refugee program. Let's come back and talk about that real soon.
We will. We'll make a point of it. But in the meantime, I hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Well, I pray that God blesses you and the Conservative Commandos in 2016.
Thank you. He has for 5 years, Dr. Brown. I hope we do the right thing, that he continues in the future, too.
Amen. God bless you.
Take care. God bless. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, AM, FM 24/7, and a whole bunch of others. Don't go away. On the other side, Anna and I are going to be speaking with Sarah Westwood, the 15 biggest scandals of 2015. Be right back.
You've heard Paul Deltz playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and CCRShow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com, 1 p.m. RoarRadio.net, and 2 p.m. HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is with us. Sarah Westwood is a watchdog reporter from the Washington Examiner. She previously covered local governments for the Marietta Daily Journal in Georgia, and she received her bachelor's degree in political science from George Washington University. She's a graduate of the fellowship program of the National Journalism Center, and we are honored to have you join us today, Sarah, on Conservative Commandos radio show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about this topic, the 15 biggest scandals of 2015. What made you come up with that topic?
Well, it was a pretty big year for political scandals. The top one that comes to mind is the Clinton email that comes back into the headlines at the end of every month when the emails get released. But when you think about it, there were quite a few political scandals that occurred this year, and some of them actually cost some politicians their seats.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm looking here at the first one that pops up on this list, and that's the First Lady of Oregon, and she had a conflict of interest. Tell us about that.
Well, she was engaged to who has been the Democratic governor of Oregon, and she also ran a consulting firm and was a environmental activist, a very strong one. And so she allegedly used her access to the governor's office through her personal relationship with Governor Kitzhaber to advocate on behalf of her clients, and that was considered a major conflict of interest. There was actually a criminal investigation into allegations of corruption that were opened, and Oregonians finally pressured Governor Kitzhaber to step down over that.
Yeah, so that's an example of one of those politicians who, due to the exercise of a conflict of interest, because while the First Lady certainly had a conflict of interest, I'd venture to say the governor himself allowed that to happen and had a conflict of interest, and for that reason lost his seat, right?
Well, that's how a lot of voters saw it. They saw this problem with environmental activists and lobbyists having undue influence on the governor's administration, and they saw Governor Kitzhaber do nothing to stop it. And every time he was asked to provide documents or he was asked just basic questions about the arrangement, he refused to answer them. And so they saw him hunkering down behind this wall of secrecy, and even if there was no impropriety there, just the fact that he wasn't being open with the people, that was really his undoing.
Well, I think appropriately so. So you also have some information here about an Illinois Republican, Representative Aaron Schock. You call it shocking expenditures. Tell us about that one.
As you might remember, Congressman Schock represented Illinois, and in February, as the story goes, a Washington Post reporter was just walking through the halls of Congress and happened to look into Congressman Schock's office and see that it was decorated uniquely. It was decorated like the set of Downton Abbey. He started asking questions, and because of the reaction he got to those questions, he ended up writing a story about the way that the office was decorated. And then a lot of reporters, they smelled blood in the water, so to speak, and they started poring over Congressman Schock's financial records. They found a lot of extravagant spending, from spending campaign and taxpayer funds on concert tickets, on private charter jets, and he couldn't withstand that scrutiny. There was a congressional ethics probe that was opened into Congressman Schock's expenditures, and under all that pressure, he just stepped down.
So yet again, ethics wins out, because people will not tolerate this, let's say, over expenditures or inappropriate expenditures, and a lack of candor with people about what those expenditures were for. And so therefore, ethics wins out. These people resign under that pressure, correct?
Exactly.
All right. Well, that's good news that ethics are still winning out. It's really bad news that folks think they can get away with this in the first place. So let's talk a little bit about tax delinquencies. It seems here that there are some federal employees who may have evaded all or in part their taxes in 2014. Tell us about that one.
This is a report that came out earlier this spring from the IRS, and it showed across the federal government there were more than 100,000 federal workers who were delinquent on their taxes, and yet they still got to keep their jobs, even though their paychecks are funded by other people who do pay their taxes. And Congress actually wasn't even able to get a bill through that made tax delinquency a fireable offense or made it a criteria that would prevent an individual from getting a government job. So even though this report was met with a lot of outrage, it didn't really cause any changes in the way the federal government approaches this problem.
And then that brings us to Hillary and what you call email gate. And you say that this email scandal has actually eclipsed every other political controversy this year. Tell us why you think that.
Well, for a few reasons. This came out, if you recall, at the beginning of March, and yet it's still in the headlines on a pretty regular basis. Part of that is because of a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that has prompted the State Department, as you know, to release emails at the end of every month. But part of it is just because of the way the presidential campaign has unfolded. So people have been paying attention to this for 9 months now, more so than just about any other one topic discussion on the campaign trail. And this is something she's had to confront again and again. And, you know, for that reason, it was probably the most prominent example of a political scandal this year.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with you. And she's still facing an FBI investigation today. Isn't that true?
That's true. We have no real way of knowing when that is going to wind down, but we know that it will have implications for her campaign, because every time someone in power, all the way up to President Obama, has suggested that this inquiry is really grasping at straws, the FBI has pushed back and made it clear that they are looking into some serious allegations, which include mishandling sensitive information and exposing it to potential hacking. So this is definitely something that could cause problems for her next year.
But that's not it, you see, because Hillary's lack of ethics extends to her foundation, right? And foreign funds. Tell us about that scandal.
Well, this is something that was much more prominent in the spring, but there has been scrutiny of the fact that the Clinton Foundation, in breach of an agreement that it reached with the White House, did not disclose all of its donors to the State Department as it was supposed to. Now, it was agreed in this memorandum of understanding with the White House that it was going to disclose all of the foreign sources of its donations to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest, given Hillary Clinton's diplomatic duties. But it didn't do that. There were millions of dollars in donations that actually went unreported, and there are a lot of unanswered questions as to why the Clinton Foundation chose to hide those donations.
Which I guess we're going to have to keep pressuring her for answers as she runs for president. But we have to take a break right now, just 2 minutes to identify the station. Will you hold on for us?
Sure, thanks.
Thank you. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, and AM FM 24/7. Those are all .com. We'll be right back after this break with Sarah Westward, talking about the 15 biggest scandals of 2015.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., roarradio.net. And 2 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with Sarah Westward. She's a watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner. She's previously covered local governments for the Marietta, Georgia Daily Journal. She received her bachelor's degree in political science from George Washington University, and she's a graduate of the fellowship program of the National Journalism Center. And she's with us today on Conservative Commandos talking about the 15 biggest scandals of 2015. Sarah, thank you so much for waiting through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
So just before the break, we touched upon the one and only Hillary Clinton, her email gate, and the Clinton Foundation scandal over not reporting foreign funds while she was the Secretary of State. We point out that these particular investigations will affect her running for presidency, although she still appears to maintain her status as a front runner for the Democrats. And we're not finished yet. We're only partway through this list. So let's go on. It looks here like you've got a former Speaker of the House, Dennis, is it Hastert? He was indicted in May. Talk to us about him.
Well, Dennis Hastert was caught because he was withdrawing small sums of cash from his bank account in order to avoid triggering a mandatory review that is put into effect anytime someone withdraws withdraws more than $10,000 at a time. He was using that money, though, allegedly, to pay off a former student of his to cover up a molestation case from decades ago. While authorities, they say that they don't have enough evidence to charge Dennis Hastert with anything in the molestation case, they did have enough to indict him on these charges of bank fraud and expose this decades-old scandal, and it's really effectively ruined the reputation of Dennis Hastert.
So at this point, he's a former Speaker of the House, so there's no particular position that he would be withdrawing from in the aftermath of this, but it does go to the ethics and the fact that he has this, shall we say, high social status in the aftermath of his political career, and he certainly must have been engaged in this unethical behavior while in office as well, right?
Well, we're not sure the extent of this behavior, but we do know that he was the longest-serving Republican Speaker of the House in history, so he's a very well-connected politician, and this has shocked a lot of people who worked with him in Congress who didn't know that this was part of his past and who are surprised that he tried to pay someone to keep quiet about this scandal.
The next one on your list kind of shocks me in a way because the fella actually is a watchdog, and yet he was retaliating against whistleblowers in his own office. You tell me his name is Todd Zinsser. Tell me about him.
This was the Inspector General of the Commerce Department. He was tasked with overseeing misconduct in that agency, but within his own office, he was accused of spying on his employees, of hiring his girlfriend and then promoting her and paying her bonuses, of retaliating against anyone who questioned his leadership. There's a lot of pressure starting to come from Congress for him to step down, and they actually, a bipartisan group of lawmakers sent a letter to President Obama asking that he remove Zinsser from that position. And shortly after that, I guess the Inspector General didn't see a way that he could hold on to that seat, and he did step down.
Okay, again, ethics wins out, but a watchdog who's disgraced because he's retaliating against whistleblowers just seems like a major contradiction. So a little shocking to me. Now, apparently Hillary Clinton isn't the only one with an email scandal. It seems like there's this Rafael More-Eraso, who was head of the Chemical Safety Board. You tell us about it, but it sounds like he's had an email problem, too.
He did. He was accused of using personal email to avoid having to keep communications on the record. What really did him in, though, was when he lied about the extent of his personal email use under oath in a congressional committee. And when he was called out on that in the committee, he continued to lie about the discrepancy. He continued to lie about the fact that he allegedly tapped the emails of some of his employees, that he had withheld documents from investigators, eventually had to step down. But even after he left his post as head of the Chemical Safety Board, members of Congress were still calling on the Department of Justice to open a criminal investigation into his actions.
So there is no, is that criminal investigation open at this point, or there is no investigation yet?
Doesn't look like one was opened, but this is something that lawmakers wanted because of the way that he treated his employees and mismanaged his agency.
I think we need to talk about Obamacare next. I mean, I've considered Obamacare a complete and total scandal from 2009 forward. But you talk to me. Apparently, federal officials have lost billions of dollars.
Yes, what happened in this particular instance is just in a 4-month period, the Department of Health and Human Services lost track of $2.8 billion in subsidies to insurance companies. Just kind of shows the bureaucratic burden that this law imposes on these federal agencies and how difficult it is for them to keep track of the massive amount of money that's flowing through it.
So we're not sure if it was improperly spent because we just frankly, don't know where it went.
Exactly. They didn't know if the payments that were made were in the correct amounts, if they went to the right people at the right times. They just sort of lost track of it.
Wow. Yeah, there's no accountability there, that's for sure. Talk to us about the Veterans Administration. We know that we've had long lines, people not getting proper treatment, some people die waiting for treatment. Tell us about the Veterans Administration mess.
Well, there have been a number of problems with the VA this year. One of them is the fact that there was an effort to cover up this massive backlog of applicants for VA benefits, that the VA misrepresented the extent to which it held its own employees accountable. There were employees that got away with stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from the VA and not only didn't face any criminal charges, but got to keep their jobs and weren't punished at all. And that's sort of the pattern that you see with the VA since last year, since this national wait time scandal was exposed, is that even given the pressure of all of this national scrutiny, you don't see the VA making any efforts to clean up its act.
Well, I think that one was a very important expose. I mean, you definitely had to have the VA clean this mess up, because people who put their lives on the line certainly should be taken care of appropriately when they come home. And to see that not occurring, it has to be corrected. You list here the Planned Parenthood videos. I think this one, to me, is number one on the list. It is the sale of human body parts from innocent, unborn babies. And they're casually discussing it over lunch. It's enough to make me vomit. This has been incredible. And I guess there's a congressional investigation into it. We're disappointed that their funding was renewed in the latest budget deal, and we're certainly going to put pressure on our elected officials on that. But I'm glad to see you included Planned Parenthood videos here on this list. I want to quickly move forward, though, because you've got something about the Secret Service here that I think is a little less known. So talk to us about the Secret Service shenanigans.
Well, the Secret Service failures are pretty well known. The fact that they've solicited prostitutes on on official travel with the president, and that they've let some pretty high-profile security lapses, like the White House fence jumper last year. But what happened here was that the Oversight Committee was looking into some of these allegations of misconduct in the Secret Service. And so some of the senior leaders of that agency got together and decided to leak an embarrassing story about the chairman of that committee, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, to a news organization about the fact that Chaffetz in 2003 had applied to become a Secret Service agent and hadn't made the cut. And they did that to discourage him from continuing his investigation. And when that came out,
so that sure seems like abuse there. Wow. Sarah, we are plumb out of time because it flies when you're having fun. Just remind people where they can follow you, and they've got to look at the rest of these 15. We did not get to them all, listeners. Sarah, where can they follow you?
They can follow us at WashingtonExaminer.com.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you, and come back and talk with us again soon.
Thank you.
All right, Anna, I want to thank you for sitting in today as my co-host. I also want to thank our other guest, Dr. Paul Brown and Eric Bain. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. Oh, by the way, tomorrow we're not doing live shows, but we're doing repeats of our Christmas Eve and Christmas Day special shows that we call Lessons, Carols, Comedy, and Cheer. So please listen in for the next 2 days. I think you'll enjoy yourself. But take care, God bless, and we'll see you next week on the radio. Merry Christmas.